All right, welcome back to the Mike and George Show. And coming up on today's podcast, we recap an epic week one of college football, and we preview a pretty loaded NFL week one slate as well, beginning this Thursday with the Micah Parsons-less Dallas Cowboys. We'll get into that too as they play the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles here in 2 days. But first, what should we start with? Should we start with Texas, Ohio State? Which game is the most anticipated one that we had going in? I think we knew that.
I was thinking Texas, Ohio State. I mean, that was 1 versus 3.
One versus 3 is probably the most anticipated matchup, but I think we both agree that we didn't think the game itself would be the best because there's so much turnover. No. I think we both kind of knew that it'd be a bit of a rock fight. 14-7, I don't think we anticipated that.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know about 14-7.
Yeah, so what was our thoughts on Texas and Ohio State right off the bat at noon?
Yeah, it was just a good defensive game. It was just pretty fun to watch. Noon kickoff. It is absolutely incredible atmosphere. Yeah. I mean, credit to the Ohio State defense. They look great. Matt Patricia had them ready. Obviously, Caleb Downs just showed it again why he's a top 3 pick in my eyes. I mean, he's just a monster out there. And, I didn't think that either quarterback played great or terrible. I mean, I thought Arch was a little uncomfortable back there. Definitely some pressure in his face. The running game for Texas was actually pretty strong. They were able to move the ball on the ground a good bit. It's just receiver-wise, they didn't really have anything. And, the Ohio State, credit to them, their linebackers played well. They played quick. Corners played well. They played quick. So, I mean, it just kind of felt like the whole time Ohio State was in control. And I think that was more of the environment almost and just kind of being able to lean on your defense because it's week one. The offenses are going to be naturally a little bit slow behind. Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it was fun to watch. It was a little bit disappointing with all the lack of scoring. But, It was interesting. And credit Ohio State.
Yeah, you were all over this. You did mention the crowd might be the deciding factor here. I overall thought it kind of reminded me a little bit of the game last year where they played in a semifinal game. The score was obviously not. I mean, that game was 28-14. I think Ohio State got a late touchdown with Jack Sawyer, but it was also kind of a rock fight. No field goals were kicked in that game either. I ultimately thought that I was most disappointed, or not disappointed, but surprised about Steve Sarkisian. I thought the play calling was a little bit vanilla, a little bit dry for a week one big game. A lot of second down runs, which I'm not a huge fan of second down runs. It just kind of sets yourself up for a 3rd and long, possibly, unless you pop a big run. And I thought he didn't help out Arch the most, which Arch certainly wasn't comfortable. No doubt about it. I figured he'd have some nerves in the first half, but I think I was like, okay, I think he'll probably settle in second half and get a little bit, get some things going. That just never occurred. And it's not a surprise. I mean, this is his first road start of his college career. I know he's been there this is his 3rd year, but this is his first time playing on the road, period. It's not like he's played on the road at Vanderbilt or somewhere that's not too, daunting. But for his first road start to come at Columbus at the Horseshoe, maybe the toughest place to play in college football, no surprise he looked a little bit off. Mechanics wise, he didn't look good either. So he didn't look as great. I think if he plays a little bit better, maybe Texas wins the game. It was a very winnable game despite all that. The Sarkisian play call. I just think ultimately Sarkisian in the red zone, similarly to what happened in the CFP semifinal, kind of got a little bit stale. Maybe. He got a little stale, and ultimately, they tried to punch it in on the goal line with the fourth and the sneak on 4th and goal at the 1. Yeah. They got stuffed.
Yeah, that was it right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then remember in the semifinal game, they went 4th and 2. They did some jet sweep, got stuffed there, and then Ewers had the strip sack fumble down there in the red zone in the semifinal game last year. So Sarkisian ultimately he's got to fix some of the red zone deficiencies for the LSU or for the Texas offense. But like you said, I thought the Texas offense when they wanted to run the ball and get ahead of schedule, get ahead of the chains, I thought they were able to do that pretty well. It's just when the field condensed, you saw that crowd kind of lean on him a little bit. Igben Newsom, Caleb Downs, those guys played awesome. And the Buckeyes just had enough. I don't think really either team looked good. And often you get these week one games where there's high profile matchups, but there's no preseason in college football. So most of these games are going to end up looking like not very good. That's why you schedule a cupcake week one before these big games typically, because you want to get ahead. You want to get to speed first. Like I remember the Georgia Clemson game a few years ago in Charlotte. It was like 10-3. Those were number 3 versus number 5 at the time, but it was not a great football game because neither. And Georgia went on to win the championship that year. They were a great team, but they didn't play their best that night, and not a lot of teams do in week one. We're usually lucky to get 2 to 3 awesome games in week one. So ultimately, I wasn't surprised. I did pick Texas, so I was a little bit surprised by the outcome, but ultimately Ohio State's awesome. So there's no we mentioned it. All these games were field goal spreads. So the Buckeyes really.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those games where it could have really gone either way. Like you said, definitely a winnable game for Texas. And I think it does come down to maybe Arch had a little bit of a kind of a cap on his upside yet. Like on Saturday, it was just one of those things. I thought I thought both secondaries played really well. Credit to Texas for being able to pretty much shut down Jeremiah Smith.
Malik Muhammad
not,
was awesome.
Yeah, Malik Muhammad. I wouldn't call him a non-factor, but I think he had 6 catches for 40 yards. Definitely will take that against him. And then Carnell Tate, he did all right. But credit to the both secondaries. They played really well. Like you said, it's just Quintravion Wisner, CJ Baxter. They got theirs. They ran for 4.5 yards a carry, 166 rushing yards. And I thought Arch was okay. Moving out of the pocket, he extended a couple plays here and there, but it was clear he was avoiding Caleb Downs the whole game. If you watch, I haven't watched a ton of film back on it, but you watch a little bit of film and you could see Caleb Downs, his side of the field was almost not even looked at all. Yeah, it was just completely off the board for him. And that's fair. I think that the big question for Texas is, they're great. The top to bottom, they're going to have the talent. But who's going to be that number one receiver guy? Who's going to be the guy who kind of leads that receiver room? Because you're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to get push on the offensive line. And I think I trust Arch to deliver when he needs to kind of down the line here, probably in maybe an easier environment as he kind of gets used to the offense. Yeah. But who's going to be the receiver? Who's going to be the guy that kind of steps into that role? And, Matthew Golden, we saw recently, we saw Xavier Worthy, these really good Texas receivers. Who's going to be that guy, I think? And it's just, I'm not sure yet. And credit to Ohio State, like I said, Matt Patricia was absolutely ready, and it almost seemed easy for that defense out there.
Yeah, I think Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore will be awesome. I think they'll be special players. I think it was just a tough matchup against that secondary week 1 that those guys were definitely neutralized. And again, Arch wasn't at his best, but I think Texas overall being able to run the ball will help that. They have 2 awesome backs in Trey Wisner and CJ Baxter. Remember, CJ Baxter missed all of last season with a knee injury in camp, so getting him back is huge for Texas. And Texas, they have new offensive line starters as well. So, I thought maybe the short yardage run game with a totally new offensive line maybe wasn't the best decision for Sark at times. But I think once those guys get more comfortable, you'll be able to see, okay, Texas has 2 awesome backs. Okay, they can start to lean on the run game, and then it opens everything up. So I think Texas will overall be fine. I'm not worried about either team. Even if Ohio State had lost the game, I wouldn't have been worried about them, even though they didn't look very good either. So we'll probably see this matchup again, but it'll be a much better game. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. All right, so which game should we get to next? There was a bunch of headliner games. So
there's a few, yeah. We can do FSU Alabama if you want to save that one.
Okay, we can do Florida. Well, I was dead wrong about this. I think we both were dead wrong about this one. Did anyone think that Florida State would win this game?
The spread was 13.5 in Alabama's favor, even on the road. They just renovated Doak Campbell, so Florida State, they do have an awesome environment there, no matter how the team looks. But I think, I don't think anyone really expected this. Thomas Castellanos, he came out and he was slinging it. He looked good out there. He looked pretty comfortable. Looked like he had a great game plan, able to hit a couple of deep balls, looked good in the pocket. And it just didn't feel like Alabama football, And you saw Nick Saban talk about it. It just felt like they were dominated up front on both sides of the ball.
Right.
And it's just not something that you can have happen. Kalen DeBoer, knows it. Obviously, they're going to get better. It's just you can't. All the money was on Alabama. No one really leaned FSU at all in this game. Obviously, you're coming off a 2-10 season. It's a ton of new faces in that offense and that defense. And I just, like you said, I don't think I even considered this. It was a 3:30 kickoff, so I was kind of watching it, keeping an eye on it. And as it creeps into the fourth quarter, I'm like, is Alabama ever going to come back here? Is Alabama going to start doing the thing? But they never did. And like I said earlier, credit to FSU. They played a great game and they punched them right in the mouth, and Bama just never recovered.
Yeah, it was surprising because that first drive by Bama looked so good. They went right down the field and scored, and then they just got gashed. I'm shocked because I thought Bama's defense on paper was maybe one of the best in the country. They just looked totally confused. That was the most surprising thing about the loss. It's not Bama just losing the game, because that's obviously surprising. It's the way they lost the game. They did get controlled in the trenches. Their linebacker play was bad. When was the last time we saw Alabama's linebacker play being bad? That never happens at that school. Their D, the O-line couldn't protect Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson didn't have a chance against Florida State. It was a bunch of they're immediately in the backfield. Ryan Williams had an off game. Everything went wrong for Alabama in that game, and it was very definitely un-Saban-like. But this is not the Saban era anymore with Bama. So maybe I have to just maybe I have to view Bama differently, because this is not those teams. This is just simply not those teams. And we saw Alabama lose games last year on the road to inferior opponents, 3 of them. To Vanderbilt and to Oklahoma and Tennessee. So, this is Florida State may be on par with those teams, but Florida State just punched them in the mouth. And I was surprised because, remember, we mentioned Thomas Castellanos was kind of chirping. And I thought, okay, this is going to look really bad. You're talking about a team that has one of the best defenses in the country, and Florida State has a bunch of new players. This could just go wrong. It feels like this could go wrong. And then it actually went the inverse. Florida State just kind of kicked him in the mouth. So I did not anticipate that at all. this is one of the only teams that lost on week 1 that I would be not panicked about, but I don't feel good. I don't feel good about that because everyone else lost, and it was like we said it last week. We said we could see either of these teams losing because they're all playing against heavyweights themselves. I don't think any of us viewed Florida State as a heavyweight, especially not after going 2-10 last year. So this was an alarming one to drop this one for sure.
I mean, you're totally right. You nailed it right there. I mean, it just kind of felt like it was a different Bama team. You talk about, obviously it's not the Nick Saban era anymore. And, you see everything on Twitter, Instagram, all the stuff that comes out after the game. But, if you watch some of those, the film back, I mean, guys are jogging, guys are not hustling, guys are not rallying to the point of the point of tackle. It just doesn't look like what Alabama football looks like, what the Crimson Tide look like,
No.
and it kind of, I think it just kind of infected the whole team. When the defense is slow and they're not able to get those stops, it makes the offense slow. And they're like, oh shoot, we got to do everything. And they just can't,
right.
You can't expect this first year starting quarterback to have to carry the load of the entire offense. And I think Bama's a better team. I think Bama top to bottom is definitely more talented than Florida State. I think Kalen DeBoer is an awesome coach. He's won several awesome, huge games. It's just, they looked worse today, and I hate to get on Bama. Like you said, it is week 1. It's a game in August. So hopefully we'll look back on this and they'll have turned the season around. But I mean, stuff's coming out about guys in the team hotel up until 2 a.m. They're DoorDashing fast food the night before.
Yeah.
And I can't verify stuff. I'm not here to say here what's true or what's not. But I mean, like, the fact of the matter is Nick Saban would have never even considered that. On a Nick Saban locker room and a Nick Saban football team, I mean, you're scared of what the coach is going to say. You're scared of even showing up to the field if there's a rumor that you were you missed curfew or you were out late past 2 a.m. or whatever it was. So, I mean, I think that DeBoer might have a little bit more work to do in terms of kind of setting that Bama standard, because it does kind of feel like there's just a little bit of a
culture shift.
A culture shift for sure, but it just kind of feels like they're a little entitled, and I hate to use that word because, these are hardworking football players. I'm not here to take anything away from them. They deserve to be on that football team, but I mean, you can't come out like that, and it's the little things. So there's definitely some work to do in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I think DeBoer's getting a lot of heat right now. It's like he should be fired immediately. You can't lose a week 1 game.
I wouldn't say that yet.
I totally, because remember the last time Bama lost a season opener, I believe, was 2001. I mean, I wasn't even born yet. Wow. That being said, we are now in an era of college football where there are no Nick Sabans. So you can't just expect Kalen DeBoer, who's an awesome coach. I firmly believe he's one of the best coaches in college football, but he's not Nick Saban, and no one is in this era. Everyone's got flaws. So I think Bama fans specifically have to kind of train themselves to, this new dawn of college football we're living in right now, where you're going to stumble some of these games you're just going to lose. Now the effort is a totally different thing. That looks like a player issue and a coaching issue for sure. And that's not something we've ever seen with Nick Saban coach teams. But I do think we have to be a little bit realistic about Bama now as we talk about them 2024 or post Nick Saban era, where there's not, you can't expect this team to just be the Bama of old, because there are no Nick Sabans in college football left anymore. There's good coaches still. There's Kirby Smart. There's Dabo Swinney. There's Ryan Day. There's good coaches, but there are no Nick Sabans. So you're not going to get these, 7 national titles, 10 SEC titles. That's just not happening. And not in the NIL era. No chance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think more to your point, like you mentioned the NIL era, I think that even more so now than ever, the playing field is level.
Very level.
It used to be that in, the 2010s, the late 2010s, the Alabama teams would be, their starters were all NFL guys, their backups were all NFL guys, and their third string, probably freshmen, but they were going to be NFL guys. Yeah. And now, you got NIL, you've got the ability of, kind of everyone gets to pay their guys whatever they feel they're worth. And so if you're Syracuse or if you're Virginia Tech or if you're Iowa State, whoever you are, if you need a left tackle, and Alabama's got a backup who's not going to see the field till his junior year, you can go grab him. And it kind of, who knows who Alabama's got out there now? That depth and that talent profile just probably isn't quite the same. So yeah, more to your point, it's not Nick Saban. And I think that talent-wise, that lopsided advantage that Alabama once had, I don't think is there anymore. Obviously, they're still very good. They're still very talented. I still think it's possible that they could win the SEC depending on what Ty Simpson looks like and that defense looks like. Yeah. But obviously, there's work to do, and they're going to have to squeeze to get everything out of their players, and it's an uphill battle from here.
It's an uphill battle, yeah. Starting 0-1, not the best case scenario for Alabama. I don't think anyone anticipated it. But like you mentioned, it's a level playing field now, and the SEC is wide open. Speaking of the SEC, we got an LSU-Clemson game. Really, LSU feels like saved the SEC this week.
Yeah,
it was not looking good. Texas losing
the top of the SEC. Yeah,
they say the top of the SEC for sure. As far as like the Texas and the Bamas losing early, but yeah, no. So what do we make about the LSU Clemson game? I was at the game. Saw it.
Yeah,
Saw it
I was as well.
unfold. Yeah, exactly. We saw it unfold there in Death Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
You know,
overall.
so we talk about winners first, at least I like to think. And so ultimate credit to LSU. You know, that defense, at least in my opinion, it kind of feels like it's back.
Yeah.
You know, in the most recent years, you know, obviously there's the Jaden Daniels year where they had the Heisman quarterback and couldn't stop molasses in December. And then you got last year, same kind of thing. Nussmeier was very good, but the defense really just was never there. But, you know, they came out, LSU defense was great. It seemed like all night they were getting pressure on Cade Klubnik, who didn't really have an answer for that pressure. It just kind of felt like he's going to roll right, and he's hopefully going to get a couple. He's going to maybe find a little gap in there, and he just never really could. But you know, ultimate credit to LSU. I think Nuss looked awesome. He made a lot of great throws. Their play calling was great. It kind of felt like they scripted the D line almost out of the game. You know, Clemson had one sack, I think it was Will Held, you know, and it was kind of a coverage sack. It was kind of one of those, you know, you had to get there first. And so, you know, didn't really hear TJ Parker's name. I don't think I heard it once.
He didn't play a lot on early downs.
He didn't play a ton on early downs, and Peter Woods kind of the same thing. So it felt like LSU kind of scripted themselves into a really nice game flow. You know, first half Clemson I thought looked really good. You know, they were able to get that run in with Adam Randall. They moved the ball a few times. They had the ball in field goal position. You know, they looked really good. They looked like the better team, and they got the ball in the second half. And that interception from Cade just kind of set the tone for the second half. I don't know if that was the first or the second drive.
It was the second drive. The first drive was the missed field goal. I thought that completely flipped the game.
Yeah, so same thing. You know, you miss special teams is tough. You know, and Clemson's kind of struggled with special teams lately in the most recent years. I do still love Nolan Hoosier. You know, you're gonna miss a kick every now and then. That is what it is. But that interception from Cade on an open throw, you know, it's a throw he has to make. It kind of flipped the game right there. And LSU just kind of Barian Brown and Aaron Anderson just looked really strong. And so it opened up the middle of the field. You know, Clemson never ran the ball. Second half they had one running back carry, and so there's a lot to go into here. You know, I'm kind of rambling, but I want to hear your take.
Yeah, I thought actually LSU dominated the game. I thought the score was actually a little bit closer than
I thought the game.
Yeah, I thought the score was closer than what the game actually indicated. It was 17-10. I thought Nussmeier was awesome. I thought watching him in person, there was a few plays where I was like, man, we dialed up a pretty good play call. It's just a better throw.
That's an NFL quarterback right there.
It's an NFL quarterback right there. I mean, even the touchdown that was reversed, I was like,
that was a touchdown too.
It looked like a touchdown to me too. And then they missed the field goal too. So I thought LSU really could have scored more points. Then Brian Kelly opted to not take the field goal before halftime, just taking 3 points off the board on 4th down and 2 with 10 seconds left. And they had no timeout. So I was like, well, you have to kick the field goal anyways. I mean, it was very strange that's why I actually leaned Clemson. I felt like if the game is close, Brian Kelly might do something weird.
And he tried.
At the end of the first half, he tried to do something, 3 points off the board. It could have been 10-6 at halftime. And then obviously they go in 10-3. So Clemson's feeling pretty good about themselves at halftime. But overall, I thought LSU's defense was the story of the game. And Clemson only had 12 first downs, 13 first downs. They didn't really move the ball. They had
31 rushing yards.
31 rushing yards. That's not going to get it done. Clemson really only had one drive to really note about. I mean, the field goal that they got was off of a fumble from LSU. So a short field that we really actually didn't do anything with. We actually went 3 and out. And thankfully, Hoosier knocked into 3. But we took over at like the 20-yard line and just couldn't do anything with it. So really, we only had one drive to speak of. I thought LSU, for the most part, defensively bottled everything up. And they kind of just went back to the bread and butter. They just went back to blitz, and more blitz. And until Clemson could beat it, they didn't stop bringing them. They kept bringing 5, brought 6. Harold Perkins with the game-closing pressure at the end of the game. I thought he was fantastic. And overall, it just didn't feel like Clemson had any answers to the blitz. I mean, the ball was just being held on to a lot from Cade specifically. I mean, look, Antonio Williams goes out on the first drive. That obviously hurts. But it flipped the game, it feel like. I mean, I don't think that Clemson had any answers to the hot pressure that LSU was sending. And I thought overall Nuss on these 3rd down conversions was able to just be poised enough to where Clemson, this is what we thought would dictate the game, was TJ Parker, Peter Woods, Will Hite, and all those guys getting after the quarterback on 3rd and longs. And Nussmeier was able to make some throws on 3rd and long over the middle of the field to Aaron Anderson, to Barian Brown. They got some DPIs to extend drives. They extended drives on 3rd downs. Clemson wasn't able to do that. And I thought overall that was the story of the game, was just LSU defensively dictated the game, didn't allow Clemson to do anything. I think Clemson's it's not an alarming loss by any means, but it's on tape now. I mean, teams are going to try to do what LSU did. Now, they don't have the athletes to do it probably, but they're just going to send pressure. And unless Clemson can kind of unless Cade specifically can kind of prove, he needs to get the ball out on time, because the ball just wasn't really coming out as quickly as it needs to be. It was a lot of drifting back. Let's rely on my athleticism. He made a couple nice plays with his legs when they brought pressure, but that's not really sustainable. Overall, you got to be able to beat it quickly. And when we brought pressure, Nussmeier, the ball came out immediately. So he kind of just sees it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So overall, I thought that was the big difference. I think Clemson was honestly fortunate to be in the game down 7. I thought our defense kind of just kept giving us opportunities.
Mhm.
LSU could have really put us away a while ago.
Yeah.
But I was more impressed by LSU than I was not impressed by Clemson, is the long-winded answer.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I thought LSU was great, obviously. I mean, for Clemson, it just kind of felt like a lot of the same mistakes as last year. It was just like you said, Cade not getting the ball out on time. It was 4th and 5, one read throw. Obviously there's that red zone clip that's been going around that Orlovsky posted on Twitter. I mean, just Cade looks terrible in there. I mean, it's one clip, but it really does represent kind of what happened. And like you said, that the left, especially the left side of the offensive line, Colin Sadler coming back off an injury, and it was Christian Batanker, he's making kind of his first start really with Clemson. It looked like that was kind of the weak side, and LSU feasted. They were able to kind of, and because we didn't run the ball, they were able to kind of force us into those obvious pass situations. Brian Kelly said it. It was the first thing he said after the game. We knew they were going to throw the ball. They couldn't run the ball. And because of that, we just sent the house, and the house got home. So, it stings for Clemson because, like you said, it was a winnable game. I think it's just
very winnable.
You have to not beat yourself. You have to be able to establish the run. And, it just felt like I was watching last year's team.
I actually compared it at the game. I said, I've watched this exact same game before. Matter of fact, it was the last game they played in this building against South Carolina.
The exact same game. Yep.
Shut out in the second half again, and kind of just hoped that this would be enough. That their defense would bend but not break. And they bended and they didn't break for the most part. Mm-hmm. And 17 points, usually should be good enough. If you hold LSU to 17 points, you should be able to
score in the second half.
You got to be able to score points in the second half. And this is the third time now in the last 4 meetings against SEC opponents where Clemson got shut out in the second half. Last year against Georgia, they scored 3 points in the second half against Georgia week 1 with the field goal. And then South Carolina got shut out in the second half at home, and then this game got shut out in the second half. So you have to score points at home, especially in the second half against SEC teams where the game goes on. You have to be able to score points against them, against SEC defense, because this is really the ceiling we talk about with Clemson. If Clemson can win the national championship, they have to go through these exact same opponents in the playoff, and you got to score more than 10 points, or in last year's case against Gamecocks, 14 points, or again last year's case against Georgia, 6 points. So it's or 3, whatever it was. So just not enough points on the board overall.
Yeah, I mean it's a shame because it's a familiar sight for Clemson fans. Cade's 0-4 in his last 4 against the SEC, and it's true. The offense just kind of doesn't scale against some of those top level defenses.
Yeah.
I don't think I think it still can. I think that there's still possible great football in front of them. But it's just it's pretty clear that when the pressure's faced, Cade is not really ready to hit his hot routes. He's not really ready to hit his quick over the middles like Nuss was, obviously. And that really was the difference. Nuss looked like the better quarterback, even in a different building. And the environment was great. Credit to Clemson. The hill was packed. The fans were in there the whole time. They were screaming. I was one of them. But it's just one of those things where I need to see a little more from Cade. And, I definitely jumped the gun on my take on this game kind of coming into it. I thought that some of those little mishaps and some of those pressures and some of that kind of small stuff was going to get cleaned up, with all the returning production. And it was pretty clear that there's still some work to do. Obviously, Dabo compared it to having the final exam on the first day of class. And, you could kind of agree with that, but you've been prepared all off season. You can say it's the first day of class, but you've been studying for the last 6 months, right?
Yeah.
So, and what LSU looks like. Who Nuss is. Berrien Brown. It's his first year at LSU, but what he looks like. You've got tape on him from Kentucky. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of excuses you can make. But at the end of the day, I thought that we got outplayed and we got outcoached. And frankly, credit to LSU because their defense looked great, and they probably looked like the best team in the country arguably last night. Maybe Ohio State, but
yeah, I thought I was most impressed by LSU for sure. I thought it was more the same for Clemson for sure as far as the second half offensive woes go. And I thought what I was more worried about coming into the game was, could Tom Allen fix, because you mentioned there's a lot of returning production, but that returning production got ran on last year as a defense. So would they get ran on again? And the first play from scrimmage, I think Cade Durham popped a 20-yard run, and I was like,
and he had him tackled, and then
he had him tackled. Yeah, I think Wade Wood had him tackled in the backfield.
It was deja vu.
Yeah, I thought Sammy Brown flew around. I thought he was fantastic. Thought he made a lot of nice plays. I thought Peter Woods, didn't hear much of him from the pass rushing standpoint, but I thought when they ran at Peter Woods,
clogged the lane well. Yeah,
there was a couple plays where I'm like, oh my God, watch Peter Woods on the replay. Look what he just did to that guard for LSU.
But for the most part, too.
Yeah, exactly. But for the most part, LSU was kind of able to misdirect us when they wanted to. When they wanted to run the ball and get us going a different way, they were able to misdirect us and pop some big runs that way. So I thought overall LSU just had a better game plan. Yeah. They were better up front, which is usually when you win the game, is if whoever's better up front. And they had a better quarterback play. So overall, very impressed with LSU.
Yeah, just one last thing. It is interesting because you look at LSU and they did bring in a ton of transfer guys. It's a ton of transfer talent, and so you haven't really seen what LSU looks like all on the same field together, and you're looking at that tape and you have to kind of put pieces together for what you think. And some of those, those motion handoffs, the kind of the orbit handoff, I thought that was an awesome play call.
Yeah.
The bootleg with the wide receiver who threw the pass, I thought that was an awesome play call.
Awesome play
A
call.
lot of those creative things that kind of get you in space, and just the defense is like, I haven't seen that all offseason. That was never in the preparation. And, it allowed LSU to kind of just throw off the defense. And credit to Tom Allen's defense, because they did still play pretty well.
They did not break. They
definitely did not break. 17 points. You're very happy with that, even with the turnover from Cade. But like I said, you can look back at some of the Clemson games from last year, and it's the exact same offense. And so LSU, who knows what their game plan even was, but it kind of felt like they just copied what Texas did. They copied what South Carolina did. They got the pressure home and they ran the ball when they needed to. And then it opened up the passing game, and they've got those speedy receivers. And the speedy receivers we have a great secondary, but when they're running the ball like that, you can only hold on for so long. So
you can only hold on for so long. That's a good point. I think LSU just did enough to win the game. I think that even them, they didn't look I didn't think they looked their best. I think even Brian Kelly was like, we could have been better.
I don't think they played their best game.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, they left some points on the board. So this might not even be the best version of LSU yet. And I think that they were the most impressive team on Saturday. Them or Ohio State, whichever one you want to pick on that one. But
yeah, definitely 1 and 2.
Definitely 1 and 2 for sure. And how about Sunday night's game, Catholics versus Convicts, Notre Dame, Miami? You were also right about this one. I was wrong. It looked like maybe Notre Dame at the end, they were going to steal it.
Yeah, Cristobal loves to give them away.
He loves to give them away somehow. Yeah, it was like they were talking all night about how Miami's defense has not busted, and then boom, here comes a bust from Corey Heatherman's defense in Miami, and CJ Carr with a legacy 3-play drive to tie the game at 24. Quickly on Miami, I thought they were really impressive. They were able. I thought the difference of the game was Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor, the two awesome pass rushers for Miami, just kind of overwhelmed the Notre Dame tackles for basically the entire game, first half and second half. Especially late in the second half where they closed the game, but then early on getting after CJ Carr, making him look like a freshman quarterback early. And I thought the difference of the game was right before the half. Beck throws it, CJ Daniels catches it with one hand behind his head, and they're able to double dip, and they come out with an 8-minute drive out of the second half and put 2 touchdowns on the board. So remember when CJ Carr had that scramble when he went back 30 yards, threw the touchdown to get it to 7-7.
Yeah.
The next time he saw the ball was 21-7 in mid-third quarter, because Miami was able to possess the ball a lot in that game as far as going down and scoring the 2-minute drill right before halftime, and then coming out of the second half with an 8-minute drive, kind of just establishing the line of scrimmage, which we mentioned before the game started. Miami and Mario Cristobal, what he's done is he is helped. The trench play is much better for the Hurricanes. We didn't know if the defense would fully be as good as it was. I mean, obviously their defense was so bad last year for Miami, but we knew that their trench play would be better, both up front on the offensive line and on the defensive line, more specifically with Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. And I thought those guys really dictated the game late and closed it out for Miami. But I was actually impressed by both teams. I came away liking both teams more than I did heading into it.
Yeah. I thought I was really impressed with Miami. I said on the show last week, I thought that Carson Beck is a guy who's played a ton of college football, and I didn't think that CJ Daniels and Malachi Toney were going to be that productive. That looks like a real problem for the entire country. I mean, that CJ Daniels catch was one of the most impressive things I've seen in a long time. So ultimate credit to them. Miami played great. But yeah, I thought Notre Dame kind of played maybe their C- effort. They didn't really put it together. CJ Carr looked uncomfortable early, which, it's fair. He's not the super high level pocket passer that, some of these other teams have. Carson Beck, the experienced quarterback, is definitely the advantage in that game. But it was a good win for Miami. I thought that they played well the whole time. They got up early, like you said, 21-7. You get that double dip, you get that late second half touchdowns and come out. I texted actually right when they came out of the half. They were up by 7. They had the ball. And they drove, and they did like a 7.5-minute drive, and Carson Beck just walked him down. Yep. And I obviously still upset about the game from the night before. It was like, if we had done that, we would have won that game. If we just come out of halftime and go get 7 more, 17-3, you're up 14. And even if you have Mario Cristobal, who probably is going to try to sell, or whoever's going to try to sell, you've got a big lead, so you can fall back on it. And that's exactly what happened. They went up and they kind of coasted to the win. So I thought Ruben Bain was an absolute monster. He didn't stat wise get as many of the paper stats as I thought, but he was in the backfield all day. CJ Carr made a couple really nice moves, honestly, to avoid a couple sacks. He looked pretty solid back there once he kind of settled in. But I think that, Notre Dame's pass catcher is just maybe not as good as Miami's. That defense is incredible, obviously, but week 1, maybe they hadn't quite gelled right. And credit to Carson Beck for taking advantage of where he could. He looked great. Carson Beck got a ton of flack this offseason. He kind of got scapegoated in Georgia, like we talked about. And really, who was he throwing to last year?
They led that country in drops.
They led the country in drops, and Beck was supposed to be that first-round quarterback that everyone was talking about, and he kind of showed us last night why he could be that still. He really was impressive for Miami against a good Notre Dame defense. Obviously, a ton of respect for Marcus Freeman and everything they've got going on over there. But yeah, I was super impressed by Miami. And also credit to them for the environment. They usually don't pack that place up, but they absolutely did.
Wow.
Hard Rock was jumping even in the rain before the game. It was pouring down. So yeah, Miami looked good. They looked poised, and they looked like the class of the ACC, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I thought Ruben Bain had that crazy interception off the Karam.
Yeah,
that was, and then he obviously closed the game with a couple sacks. Hakeem Mesidor was also awesome as well. I thought Notre Dame, to go back to them, not enough Jeremiah Love. Really, I thought it was a lot of screens. And I get early on wanting to go to screens, get some completions, easy completions for CJ Carr. But then in the fourth quarter, down 7, 21-14, to go back to a screen, and then it gets caromed up in the air and it gets picked off by Ruben Bain. That felt like a dagger because Miami didn't do anything off that pick.
A little unlucky, but
yeah, a little bit unlucky. But like, why call a screen there in the fourth quarter when we have so much momentum now? We're only down 7. We can kind of, CJ Carr's now comfortable.
Open up the field a little bit, yeah.
Open up the field a little bit, and then ultimately Miami did nothing with that pick. They did nothing, kind of similar to Clemson. They did nothing, and they got no first downs. They kicked the field goal to go up 10, and ultimately going up 24-14 is different than going 21-14. It's a 2-score game, so Notre Dame wasn't able to. Yeah, Notre Dame wasn't able to come all the way back. They were able to tie it at 24, but that pick, points off takeaways, we mentioned it. That interception off the deflection Ruben Bain got Miami 3 points. And then at the end of the drive, Carson Beck just got a few first downs, got him in the field goal range. They kicked the 47-yarder, and they win by 3. It's as simple as that. They took care of business at home, and what was an awesome game, an awesome environment, like you said, surprisingly awesome environment in Hard Rock. It feels like anytime Notre Dame comes down to Miami, they pack it. They came down 6 years ago with Ian Book, and they just got flustered. The crowd was crazy. It was right on them. But yeah, Miami usually doesn't pack the crowd like that. But when Notre Dame comes to town, it's a little different. But yeah, overall, I was impressed with CJ Carr. I thought he looked better as the game went on, which is what you want to see. I think Notre Dame's got one. I think overall they'll ultimately lean on Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price more. It was just one of those games where Miami's D-line is so stout. Their trench play in general is so stout. It looks like this is going to be one of the few games where Notre Dame is actually outmatched up front in the trench plays.
Sure.
I thought Notre Dame's corners are awesome. Leonard Moore, Christian Gray. Christian Gray went out for one play, and Carson Beck took advantage, found Malachi Toney on a deep crosser. But credit to Miami. I thought Miami looked really good, and I think Notre Dame's going to be just fine. I think Marcus Freeman's doing a heck of a job at Notre Dame. I think this is why you schedule these early season games. This is why heck, Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois last year, week 2, and they still managed to get to the national championship game. So they're going to be okay. A loss at Miami does nothing to hurt you, really, especially if we think they're going to win 10 or 11 games, which they very much still can. It's a very favorable schedule. They do have Texas A&M 2 weeks from now, but it's in South Bend, so you should feel if you win that game, you're just right back to where you started, so you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, to wrap it up, should we talk about TCU last night, the Frogs and Bill Belichick?
We can get a little TCU going, sure.
In Chapel Bill, I mean, what happened to Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels last night? It was not that they were supposed to win, but 48-14.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely surprising. That first drive, UNC looked great. They're right on time, and Twitter's just flying. Cowherd's tweeting that he's the second best college coach ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. But then you kind of get into the game, and they just looked a little slow. They looked a little uncomfy, and that TCU, like, they just kind of spread it out wide, a little air raid, and they were just dropping it on them all night. 48 points. It just never ended. I was writing a paper actually while I was watching the game. It was like right on behind me. And I just keep looking back, and every time I look back, it's 24-7, 31-7, 41-7, 41-14, 48-14. Like, holy crap, TCU's just running it down their throat. So, I mean, credit to them, and UNC packed it out as well. The environment was great, but
awesome. Yeah.
It just felt like they got walked down on. And you let me know, because I didn't watch it too intently, but definitely felt like TCU just kind of had their way with them, and Josh Hoover played pretty well.
Yeah, they just absolutely dominated the game. I'm high on TCU anyways. I think they were a 9-win team last year, so the Frogs are good. I mean, look for the Frogs. The Frogs are a good team. They were in the national championship just 3 years ago. And remember, Bud Clark, who had a pick 6 last night against the Tar Heels, kind of jumped the route. He's been here for this. He had a pick 6 against Michigan in the national semifinal 3 years ago. That kind of sent him to the national championship game. So he stuck around with Sonny Dykes. He could have left. He's been here with TCU, and it just comes down to more continuity with the Frogs. A lot of returning production. They returned Eric McAllister. They returned their quarterback, Josh Hoover. So they just have a lot. They returned Caleb Elamzor. They have a defense that's gelled, and they've been playing together for a few years now with Sonny Dykes. And ultimately, 70 new players for North Carolina was too much unpredictability. It's funny. We saw this Colorado TCU story 2 years ago when Colorado brought in a whole new team, and they, ironically enough, faced TCU off the national championship, and they beat TCU. So it was kind of a similar story for TCU. It's like, wait, we're once again playing a team that's getting all the talk, all the media coverage.
With the coach and the transfers.
Was Deion Sanders and the transfers. That's all the media coverage was. And then last night, all the talk leading up to the game, all the pregame festivities was Bill Belichick in Chapel Bill with the Tar Heels. No one talked about TCU. And TCU just walked in there and were the comfortably better team. I mean, no doubt about it. They were comfortably the better team. I thought Josh Hoover was awesome. I've always liked Josh Hoover's game. I always thought he had a little bit of Stafford in his game. Kind of reckless abandon, but he's like a nice player. He's a dog. And TCU was really good up front. And outside of that first drive for North Carolina, they did not have a completion for over an hour. It took the third quarter for their next completion to occur. So TCU's defense really locked up. They really strapped up. I thought their secondary was awesome. North Carolina, outside of that first scripted drive that Freddie Kitchens had, it was a lot of one-on-one. Let's just kind of pray. And TCU was lockstep, just shutting everything down. Everything was boxed. And they couldn't run the ball after that first drive either, the Tar Heels. So it was just an impressive performance by the Horned Frogs. Tar Heels got some work to do. It's a very light schedule, though. Like, North Carolina does not face a ranked team all year besides Clemson. Their next 3 games are Charlotte, Richmond, and UCF. So they should be fine. I don't know how good they are. They're probably not. I mean, obviously last night they were terrible. So, but the thing is, they could not be a good team and still win 6 or 7 games because the schedule is very light. And I believe Bill Belichick's going to eventually have them playing good football, but not right away. Not with 70 new players. Not against this TCU team that won 9 games last year, and they are a Big 12 contender. That's not an overreaction to week 1. No, TCU was a Big 12 contender heading into the game. They were top 5 in odds. So that's not anything shocking. I think 48-14 is a little bit shocking, but really impressed by TCU. And it was weirdly, with Belichick, we both watched him in the NFL. His coach teams never beat themselves. That's kind of the thing with Belichick. They never beat themselves. It's all about fundamentals, special teams, fundamentals, all that stuff. North Carolina had a lot of mistakes last night. It was a scoop and score for the Frogs defense. They had a pick 6. So 2 touchdowns off of takeaways, a pick 6 and a scoop and score. That doesn't usually happen with Belichick coach teams. They don't usually give away points. They don't spot teams' points. But they did last night, and overall it was just a disaster opening start for Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels. But more came away impressed with TCU again. More impressed with the Frogs.
I mean, like you said, I watched a ton of Bill Belichick, obviously, in the NFL. Like you said, his teams don't beat themselves, and they don't really they defend the run usually a lot better. And
their linebacker play is usually awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And it just kind of felt like TCU could run the ball like they have everything open at like all night. Like they did whatever they wanted. They had 260 rushing yards, and that's why it's so funny to me that when people compare the NFL to college football, because obviously you're playing the same sport, but that's where the comparisons end. It really is different. The offenses are different. The personnel is different. And like you think about the Bill Belichick Patriots in the Patriot way and the standard being set by Tom Brady from the top down. It's just a different thing. You come into North Carolina, the star is you. In college football, the coach is the star. It's the players are there for 3-4 years, maybe 5 with COVID, 6 year, who knows? But the coach is the star. You're supposed to be the guy. You're the continuity. So I think it's interesting because you kind of saw it right away. Where is Bill Belichick willing to? As a college coach, you kind of have to be like the cringy Dabo kind of guy, like Shane Beamer. Like people crap on Beamer, but his guys love playing for him. His guys are fired up to play for him. The same with like Ryan Day's a little bit like that. They're all kind of a little bit goofy, but obviously they know ball. They're going to get their guys in the right spots. And so it kind of felt like Bill Belichick, he was so tense, so serious that doesn't feel like it meshes well with college with 18, 19, 20-year-olds who you're just recruiting, who they've been just told they're the best player in the world since they got out of high school. So I think that it's going to be an interesting process for Coach Belichick to kind of adjust. Obviously last night was a little bit embarrassing. It's a tough start in your own building to kind of get beat like that. But like you said, credit to TCU. They had everything going. Yeah. I thought that Josh Hoover was great. I didn't watch a ton of it, but I thought he looked good. And then UNC was Gio Lopez. It looks like he got subbed out. I mean,
he got injured. He got injured on that scoop and score. He got hit low. Yeah. Hit low. But,
so who knows what UNC is going to look like? I mean, that defense obviously has to be better, but it was just surprising to me. I thought TCU had a good chance to win, obviously, but I didn't think it was going to be like
not this. No, not this. And out of the half, Herb Street mentioned, he said this is a huge drive for the Tar Heels defense. And on the first play from scrimmage in the second half,
gone,
untouched. So you mentioned how Belichick's teams are usually great against the run. No one even got a hat on Kavorian Barnes, who it was blocked up really well by TCU. So again, give credit to TCU. But yeah, that was like the dagger, like right out of the half, boom. 27-7 or whatever it was, 34-7.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but
it's kind of just like this last thing, but like it's just kind of the analogy that comes to mind is like he's TCU's, it's Big 12. These guys have been there for several years. Like you said, you've got guys returning from that national championship team who've been playing together, that O-line's playing together, whatever. And then North Carolina, it's like you had all semester do your class project and you threw it together last minute with all these guys from the portal, whatever, you just threw it together and it's like, hopefully I get an A. It's like, like, no, you got to play a football team that's got a returning quarterback, that's got a good running back, that's got a good O-line, and you can't just talent your way to a win because they're going to come with a good scheme. So ultimate credit to TCU. They looked awesome and it was a tough game for Bill.
Yeah, it's a good analogy. TCU was studying all offseason. They had the answers to the test. North Carolina kind of put the project together late. We didn't know how they'd look. Not a good first week for the Tar Heels. So yeah, we can now. What's your, just real quick to finish off the college football week 1? What's your week 1 overreaction that like you actually kind of believe? Because there's a lot of overreactions week 1 going around that I'm like, I don't actually believe. Like I don't believe Gus Malzahn and the Florida State Seminoles are actually going to be great this year. I don't really buy that. They're 14 right now. I don't think they're the 14th best team in the country. Impressive week 1, no doubt. But I'm not just going to see like, oh, Florida State, they're back. They're going to be great. I got to see it because I still don't. Not a big Gus Malzahn fan. I saw Tommy Castellanos dominate Florida State last year week 1, and then Boston College kind of faded away. So what's a week 1 overreaction that you actually believe in?
I think that. And it's a tough one because I think their schedule's not that bad, but I think 8-4, 7-5 with Alabama is not completely off the table. I think that team has to figure something out, find out what its identity is. They're gonna have a bit of a cupcake, although it is UL Monroe, and we know the Nick Saban history with UL Monroe.
Yes,
but it's Georgia. The following I think it's a bye week, and then it's Georgia in Sanford. So there's a very real chance that team's 1-2. And then it's Vandy at home, and they've already got their own thing with Diego Pavia. I mean, Pavia kind of feels like he owns the state of Alabama right now.
Right now he does, yeah.
And then they've got Tennessee, obviously, and Tennessee looked great with Joey Aguilar. And they have to go to South Carolina. They have to play LSU. So I wouldn't be shocked. Like, where are all the wins for Alabama?
They got to play at Auburn. Auburn looks great.
And that game's always, it's the Iron Bowl. It's always going to be.
Anytime it's at Jordan-Hare, it's going to be weird.
Yeah. So for Alabama to lose a non-conference game this early in the season, it just really irks me. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say they're going to go 7-5. That's not what I'm saying. But in terms of overreaction, I think that 7-5 is more likely than 11-1.
I'm with you there. My week 1 overreaction is not a big one because I'm overall not going to overreact to most of the week 1 guys. I still think Texas is good. I still think Clemson's good. I still think Notre Dame and Miami are both good. So I'm not going to overreact to any of those games. My week 1 overreaction is like whether it's something or nothing. I think this is something. The group of 5 representative. I think it's going to come from the American Conference. I at first thought it'd be Boise or UNLV or
not Boise.
Not going to be Boise. First of all, the Mountain West is off to a terrible start. Boise State gets crushed by South Florida in the non-conference. San Jose State, one of the top 3 contenders in the Mountain West, get beat at home by Central Michigan in the MAC. Not a good start for the Mountain West. I don't think the MAC and the Sun Belt are just good enough. They don't have enough depth. I think for sure, I'm willing to lock it in right now. The group of 5 representative will come from the American, which had an awesome week. USF dominates Boise State, who was ranked at home. So USF's a good team. They're going to play Florida this week at the Swamp. They're probably going to lose, but USF's a real team. That's a team that can win the American. Tulane dominates Northwestern, 23-3. Tulane's a good team. They play, I think they play Duke here in a couple weeks when they face their old quarterback Darian Mensah. So Tulane's got a squad. Navy's got a squad. Memphis has a really good team. UTSA played Texas A&M tough. UTSA is a good team. They played A&M. They were down 21-17 at halftime, so they're going to be good. Meep, the Roadrunners. The American Conference, I'm pretty sure I had UNLV or Boise, whoever won the Mountain West, coming out in my initial preseason predictions of who would represent the group of 5. I love Dan Mullen, and I think going from Alex Orji to Anthony Calandria, UNLV is a good team. They're 2-0 already. They play at UCLA next week. Or no, they play UCLA at home in Las Vegas. So if they can beat UCLA, not a great team. UCLA looked very bad. Ian Maliava was all over the place. But if they can beat UCLA, it's a very cupcake Mountain West schedule for the UNLV Rebels this year. I don't think it's going to be enough to get them in the conference in the group of 5 though, because I think overall the American has more depth. USF, Tulane, Memphis, Navy, UTSA. I mean, all these teams in the American. So my week 1 overreaction, not even really an overreaction. It's just I think I'm going to already go ahead and throw my hand up and say I was wrong because I don't think Boise. I think Boise, that one may be like legit. I think Boise might not be very good without Adam Genty. I think UNLV may not have the wins on their schedule to get to the playoff. San Jose State was one of the top 3 contenders. They lose at home, and now they got to face Texas on the road next week. They're 0-2. Yeah. So not a good start for the Mountain West. I'm going to go American is where you'll see the group of 5 representative. That's my overreaction.
Yeah, credit to you. I'll be honest, I didn't watch a ton of G5 this past weekend. I did watch the
That's
Boise
fine.
game.
Yeah.
That wasn't pretty after the first half. But I don't hate that take. I think the American is strong. Obviously, South Florida looked awesome. Tulane's played a ton of important football.
Yeah.
Obviously they had that USC win from a few years back. That was so
Sure.
cool. So I think Tulane's a good team. So yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here like with an educated take. I didn't watch a ton of the G5. G5 George did not make an appearance last week.
No, we did not.
But credit to you. Good on you. But I think I can respect it. I have a ton of respect for the American.
Yeah, overall, not the most spicy overreaction of week one. I could have went, South Carolina's winning the SEC. Lenore Sellers is the Heisman. I'm not going to do that.
I mean, yeah.
No, I'm not going to.
You're not going to hear me talk too well about that.
No, I'm not going to go overreact in that regard. I'm not going to say, Texas is done. They're going to bench Arch Manning. He's going to be the DJ Uyunglele of this season.
Nothing like that. No.
I'm not going to do any of that nonsense, the Monday morning quarterback stuff. So my week one overreaction is very, very calm, very mild mannered G5. That's what I'm going to go with on that one. But we'll learn more football.
It's respectable.
Yeah, we'll learn more football week 2, week 3, and once we get into conference play, we'll know a little bit more. Because week 1, you really don't know. It's there's no preseason in college. You really don't know too much yet. So yeah, we'll take a quick break and then we'll highlight some NFL stuff when we come back.
Let's do it.
All right, we are back, and we are going to talk some NFL here. We got football 2 days from now. Thursday, we have our first game. It's Cowboys-Eagles. No Micah Parsons for the Cowboys. George, we didn't get your instant reaction about that. Obviously, it happened. I think it happened on your birthday. It was just like it happened out of nowhere, and I was like, "What's going on? Like, did they just trade him?" Actually, I think it happened like the first half of Boise, South Florida, whatever it was, and I was just shocked they traded him. So, what was your initial take on the Cowboys actually trading him? Because we talked about this, they're not actually going to do it. They're just going to cave in and pay him. But they didn't.
Nothing ever happens, FC.
It's like, but no, they traded him. So.
So we talked on the pod, I think 2 weeks ago, just about the whole Jerry Jones thing. That's its own thing. And then you saw that letter from Micah Parsons at the beginning of August, kind of saying, "Thank you, Dallas." It really did feel very personal. Like it did feel like this was beyond a money dispute. This was more of a front office dispute,
Right.
And I wasn't sure. I didn't think he was going to get traded. I mean, it's so hard to trade a player of that caliber. But it was pretty clear, I guess, once it kind of got down to the details that he didn't want to be there and he wasn't going to sign that extension. And Jerry was just kind of scrambling. It looked like kind of to find something. The trade itself, obviously, when you trade a player like Micah Parsons, it's never a good look. 2 firsts and Kenny Clark it's a nice package, but it's just not Micah Parsons. Obviously, I'm happy to get him out of my division. Get him away from Jaden Daniels as far as possible.
Yes.
But it's just for the Cowboys. It really just throws a wrench kind of in your defense. And I wasn't huge on the Cowboys already. I kind of had said I wouldn't be shocked if the Giants finished over them, and even more so now. Kenny Clark is fine and he's good against the run, and he's been in the league for a while. He's a good D tackle. But, losing Micah Parsons, your defense just loses a piece of its identity, a huge piece. And the other side is, how do the Lions prepare in 1 week for Micah Parsons? By the way, you got to play this guy too. So that's a tough one.
Crazy.
Is that a home game? I got to.
That's in Green Bay. It's actually in Lambeau.
Wow. Yeah. So it's just an ultimate
tough one.
Tough. It's nice to be in Lambeau before it gets too cold. So that's a little bit of a benefit. But yeah, that's a tough game there. But yeah, no. If you want to start with Cowboys Eagles, we can talk about that right there. I think spread moved to 8.5. I think it was 7.5. Now it's 8.5 of that. Micah.
Whole point for Micah Parsons not being there. Yeah.
Whole point. It's going to be fun Thursday night. It sucks because you're kind of going to see right away for Dallas just how ugly it might be. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. They've got some playmakers on the offense, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. I'm sure they're going to get their offense. They're going to have their offense production. But I think the Eagles are probably going to give them about 35, 40 points. I think that defense is going to have a long day. So yeah, I want to hear what you think, but the Cowboys,
that defense, I mentioned it in the emergency pod. I said, what is going on with the Cowboys defense right now? They just extended Deron Bland. That's nice. But I think losing Micah Parsons ultimately hits the secondary because he kind of masked a lot of their issues from as far as getting to the quarterback and stopping the run. He sets the edge. I mean, he's an awesome run defender as well. So Jerry Jones mentioned he wants to stop the run. They may very well be able to do that with Kenny Clark and Osio Odigizua. But outside of that, first of all, who's getting to the quarterback? Right now with this team, Overshone's out for like I said, the first half of the year. You don't have Micah Parsons. It's not like you got a pass rusher back. It's not like you got like a nice young pass rusher in return for him. You got Kenny Clark, who's about to turn 30, whose best years are behind him.
I think he already is 30.
He is 30. Okay, yeah, I think
he's
he is 30. Yeah, so
32.
he's on the plus side of 30 now, and he's a good player still, but his best years are behind him. So overall, I actually didn't like the package. I didn't like the package at all for Green Bay, for Dallas, I should say, because it has to be at least 3 firsts for Micah Parsons. I mean, even Myles Garrett, who was possibly going to get traded early February, March, whatever, the talk was 3 firsts, and he's 30 years old. Micah Parsons is 26 years old. Those guys have to go for at minimum 3 first round picks. At minimum. I mean, this is like trading the quarterback. It's the second most important position to quarterback, basically, because it's who gets to the quarterback, and Micah Parsons gets to that. He's the only guy outside of Reggie White who's got 12 sacks in his first 4 years. So it's just you're losing an unbelievable player. I think Dallas is going to get boat raced on Thursday Night Football. I could see Dak looking good. I could see CD looking good, and I don't think it'll matter. I mean, heck, George Pickens could look good. I don't think it's going to matter because I think Philly will do whatever they want with Dallas, even if they're not able to run the ball as well as they want to, because Dallas is trying to gear up to stop that. They'll be just fine as far as everywhere else goes.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of week 1 games to have to play, it's just brutal. You know, the Eagles, obviously, they're coming off the Super Bowl. They just got all the momentum in the world. That O-line is generational, like we talked about.
This is the one thing I don't want to face. I'm Dallas.
Exactly. Like if you're Dallas, you want that little week 1 cupcake that we talked about for college.
Giants or something.
You want the Giants. You want the Cardinals or the Saints. I don't know. You want somebody who you can, kind of match up with. And even if you lose a close one, it looks okay. But yeah, it does feel like the Eagles are probably going to run away with this one pretty comfortably. And I'll be happy to watch it.
Yeah. I think the demise of Dallas is going to be very fun to watch on Thursday Night Football. If they win that game, I'll be as shocked as I was when Florida State beat Alabama, which is very shocked. So I'm going to go Eagles relatively big. I think they cover the spread too. I think Eagles. I'll swallow the points.
Eagles by 10. It's 8.5, and I think it's probably 15.
They're going to win by double digits. I think they'll be able to get to 30, 35. I don't think Dallas will be able to keep up there.
Yeah, definitely agree. And
then we got Friday. I was going to say, we had a Friday game. It's in Brazil again. Remember last year we had a Friday game. The field was terrible.
Was that Miami last year, or it was Green Bay?
It was Green Bay. Yeah, it was Green Bay. Remember, guys were slipping. That's when Love got hurt.
Yeah.
It was Eagles. Oh, it was Eagles Packers because Saquon had an awesome game.
I remember all the green. Yeah,
Saquon had like 3 touchdowns and 200 yards. That was the start of his awesome year. So it was Eagles Packers last year in Sao Paulo. Now we have Chiefs Chargers division matchup.
Good game.
Yeah, good game. Patty Mahomes and the Chiefs. Kelsey just got engaged. So what do we think about that game?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, I like to lean Chiefs. You got to trust Andy Reid. You got to trust Pat. And the Chargers a little bit banged up right now. That offensive line, no Rashawn Slater for the rest of the year. It's a little bit scary. And I still kind of want to see the Chargers give me a little more offensively. I think Amarian Hampton obviously is a nice little pickup, first-round running back. Najee Harris is projected to play. I think he's talking about he's expected to play, although he's still wearing his sunglasses, so who knows?
Right.
But yeah, I think I'd lean Chiefs here. I mean, obviously Justin Herbert has the talent to win this game if he needs to. It's going to probably be one of those that comes down to the turnover margin, and in Brazil, it shouldn't really be much of a crowd implication, I think it's a home game for the Chargers, which is kind of unfortunate that they now have to also go back and play in Arrowhead.
They're not going to take a game from Arrowhead away.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if there's ever a team that doesn't need another home game, take one from the Chiefs. Give the Chargers an extra. But obviously, this is the NFL, it's the entertainment. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to lean Chiefs here, but it's going to be a good game. So let me hear. I'd like to hear.
It always comes down to the wire with Chiefs Chargers. Always like a field goal kind of game. Last year, the Chiefs doinked their way to a win over the Chargers in Arrowhead. And in 3-point games that are close, I'm going to always lean Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. They're so good in division games against these teams. They know them so well. But they
last year was 11-0 in one possession or something.
Yes, 11-0 one possession games. They went undefeated against their division until the Broncos game late year where they rested everybody. But they're very good typically against their division. Matter of fact, the Raiders usually give them the most trouble out of all these teams, ironically enough. But yeah, I lean Chiefs here. I think the ultimate deciding factor is no Rashawn Slater. I have no idea how the Chargers will be able to hold up in pass protection against the Chiefs. I love the Chiefs' defensive line, their front four. And ultimately, yeah, I like Omarion Hampton, but rookie running back, those guys don't usually play too much week one, so it may be a little bit more of a steady diet of Najee Harris if he plays.
And even if he does, I think Spags is going to be ready for him.
Spags just situationally is the best defensive play caller.
Yeah,
I think Brian Flores might be the best defensive coordinator, but situationally, it's Spags, no doubt about it. Like when the game is close,
timing wise, be able to get his blitzes home.
Yes, when you need a defensive play call, 3 minutes, 24-21, 2 minutes to go, I want Spags calling the plays. Fangio's awesome. Brian Flores is awesome. I want Spags when the game's on the line, which I believe this game will be close. Usually Chargers Chiefs games are very close. They're very competitive. They're very fun. Herbert usually always plays well until late game, and the Chiefs kind of get home, make a play, make one more play than the Chargers do usually. It comes down to like a Bucker field goal or something happens weird late that the Chiefs are just able to win it. So I'll go Chiefs. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to look really good. Patrick Mahomes, very good week 1 quarterback. Andy Reid, a very good September coach. So I think the Chiefs get off to a good start here.
Yeah, I'd agree there.
Yeah, and then the Sunday slate, there's not too many awesome. There's a couple of blockbuster ones, but what are some headlining week 1 games?
Yeah, a couple fun divisional matchups. Lions Packers.
Lions Packers.
We touched on it. We touched on it. I think it's Falcons Bucks and Niners Seahawks. A couple of those division matchups that
rivalries.
Just a couple of rivalries that could kind of be important for the future. But yeah, I think the biggest one is Lions Packers. I'm really excited to watch that one in Lambeau. We touched on it actually a second ago about how it's nice to get into Lambeau before it gets too cold. But obviously you still have Micah Parsons, just breathing down your neck apparently. So yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be one of those games that I think also it's 2.5 in favor of Green Bay right now.
The home team.
Home team. It's just kind of a 2-point spread or 2-point push for home field advantage or whatever it is. But yeah, I'm going to say I think I lean Lions here. I still love the Lions. I still think Jahmyr Gibbs is great. I think that offense is great. They get everyone back almost on defense. Aiden Hutchinson, I believe, is going to play for sure.
Yes.
So yeah, Jordan Love still has a little bit to show me. I think I'm taking Goff over Love. But, it just depends, because you have Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons can wreck that game because you've been planning for the Packers, like I said, for 6 months, whatever, for the whole offseason, for week 1. And all of a sudden you've got the best defensive player in football, I would say,
right
pretty comfortably, just dropped right into your backfield all day long. So, it's going to be an interesting one. That one I think is the 4:25 CBS primetime. So that's
Nance
all
and
the eyes
Romo.
on it. That'll be Jim and Tony. So it's going to be a good one. I'm leaning Lions, but I'd like to hear what you think.
I'm also leaning Lions. I had Lions. I was very confident the Lions would go in there and win. I think Hutchinson's going to have a statement game coming back from the injury. He was so awesome last year before going down. And I still just like Jared Goff in that against an early season Packers team where it's not cold yet in Green Bay, like you mentioned. He's a California kid, plays a lot of dome games, but Green Bay in September is basically it's like playing on the beach. It's gonna be very fine. Now with Micah Parsons, those mentioned the plan, but I'm still gonna go Lions because I think that it's kind of the way we talk about in college, the continuity. Micah Parsons has been there for 4 days, maybe 3 days. He has been there. What was it, Friday? He got there. So it's very new, and he's got to turn around and play 9 days later or 10 days later against an awesome team, against an awesome offensive line. I'm not saying he's going to get neutralized. I think he'll do what if he gets to Goff, he can obviously wreck the game, force a couple strip sacks, whatever. But ultimately, I'm going to trust Aiden Hutchinson and that Lions defensive line that's more healthy now than they were a year ago to get to Jordan Love and make him a little bit more uncomfortable. I'm going to go Lions late with a field goal, maybe 27-24. So I'm also I'm with you. I'm going to lean Lions. They're plus money right now. They're plus 2.5, like you mentioned. The home team usually the side here, but Detroit walked into Green Bay and beat them last year pretty handily without Hutchinson. So I'm going to go Lions close. I just like them a little bit more.
Yeah, and it is nice, though, to have a guy in terms of guys to come in last minute. An edge rusher, you don't have a ton to learn. Just go get the guy with the ball. Yeah. Go get the quarterback. It's one thing if you're a cornerback, one thing if you're a safety, trying to learn coverages, pre-snap motions and adjustments and stuff like that and kind of being able to react. As a pass rusher, it's just go. So I think that it won't be too hard for Micah, but I still like the Lions more than the Packers in terms of top to bottom team. And obviously the weather, I think, is not going to be much of an impact. So yeah, I think a late field goal is probably a good take. They've got that good kicker, Jake Bates. So the Lions are pretty solid, and it's been kind of interesting. People are kind of mixed opinions on the Lions this year because some people think last year was their best chance.
Yeah.
I think that as long as they're healthy on defense, I love Dan Campbell. Everyone loves playing for Dan Campbell. As long as Jared Goff is on time, obviously new coordinators might be a little interesting, but with the same players and having played several seasons together at this point, I think they're going to be able to trust each other and be able to put this together for a win.
Yeah, a lot of mixed opinions on the Lions. I've seen people that are low on the Lions, have them as the 9th or 10th or 11th best team in the league. I'm not that low on the Lions. I think ultimately everyone's high on Green Bay now because the last few days, so they made a Super Bowl worthy move getting Micah Parsons. I think ultimately week 1 that hype will die down just a little bit. I think the Lions are still overall the better team as of right now the second. Maybe that'll change with the course of the season with health and injuries and all that other stuff. But I think right now, right this second, the Lions are the better football team. I think that Green Bay hype will die down just a smidge, and Detroit gets out of there with a big divisional week 1 win. But I like both these teams. I think they're both going to be playoff teams now, obviously, with the addition of Micah Parsons in a tough division.
I will say I'm very excited to see Matthew Golden play.
Yes.
I think that the Packers have kind of been looking for a
number one guy.
Romeo Dobbs is very good. Jaden Reed? Jaden Reed, very good. Christian Watson was very solid for a few years there. So it's who's going to be that guy? And I think Matthew Golden has that upside. So, this could be a breakout. You just never know. But yeah, that's another name to keep an eye on. Yeah,
it's going to be an awesome game on 425. And it's going to lead right into our Sunday night game, possibly the two best teams in the world right here.
Well, the
Maybe
Commanders aren't playing, but
if the Commanders aren't playing, yes, that's fair. Buffalo, Baltimore, maybe the two best rosters. Again, maybe take away,
totally fair.
Yeah,
Totally fair.
these rosters top to bottom are really, really good. They get it in Buffalo in Orchard Park, which is where the game was played last year in the divisional round. This has the makings of they're gonna see each other again. These
Yeah,
teams
it's just one of those. The Ravens just keep getting thrown the book for week one. Last week it was in Kansas City.
Last year
and they
Arrowhead,
were 2 inches away with Isaiah Likely's foot from winning that game.
Yeah.
And then here we are again. Week one in Buffalo, which it, like similar to Green Bay. You get Buffalo before it's too cold. You're not getting there in November, December, where the turf is frozen under your feet, so it's not that bad.
They may have to play them again when it's cold in January. They might have to play together.
Yeah, exactly. So who knows what it looks like down the road? But so week one, you kind of just get our best against your best, and this is just one of those games where I have no idea. It feels like kind of similar to Packers Lions. It's going to be late. It's going to be a dropped pass, or it's going to be a strip sack, or it's going to be an overthrown interception. One play, exactly. I probably should lean Bills here. They're the home team. I love Josh Allen. I love the Ravens this year. I really do love the Ravens this year.
Awesome team.
I think that it's such a prove-it year for Lamar. That defense is incredible and just getting better year by year. And the Ravens, that receiver room is kind of the best it's been. Last year was very good, but once again, Rashad Bateman, great year last year. Zay Flowers, great year last year. You bring in D-Hop kind of just to anchor it down and be the possession kind of guy in the wide receiver 3 role. And then, obviously Derrick Henry running it down your throat whenever you need him to. I love the Ravens, but it's just so hard to pick against the Bills at home, especially not in the playoffs. They're so good in the regular season. But yeah, I think I lean Bills here, but frankly, I could be swayed pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm just going to watch this game as a fan. I'm not going to have any I don't know who's going to, I genuinely don't know who's going to win this game.
And you'll enjoy it. You'll be a great view.
I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this game. I'm going to just pick the Bills. Nothing crazy here. I think both teams could easily win. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm just going to go with whoever's at home. This is kind of a cop-out answer, but I'm just going to take whoever's at home. So I won't spend too much time talking about why I think the Bills are going to win, because I really don't know. I think they're at home. They might win that way. But I think Josh Palmer, in addition to him, I think red zone-wise, that could be really good for Josh Allen to get a big body receiver like him. Obviously, you still have Keon Coleman there, who had a fine rookie season. You got Khalil Shakir, those guys like that. James Cook is now freshly paid as far as the extension goes. The Ravens have a new kicker in Tyler Loop. Obviously, a decade plus of Justin Tucker. So if it comes down to a field goal, maybe
not the safety
there's no more automatics because Justin Tucker's automatic. So, well, maybe not toward the end of it, but he was automatic for a decade as far as field goals go. So I'm gonna I guess I'll lean Buffalo, but ultimately these two teams they'll play each other again. So whoever wins week one, the only big thing about this game obviously is tiebreakers late in the season. Who won this week one game will dictate tiebreakers and possibly who gets the home field advantage in the playoffs in the AFC, because both these teams are going to win 12 plus games. I think we both know if Lamar is healthy, if Josh is healthy, these teams are coasting to the playoffs. It just depends on what the seed is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's two great defenses. I think I like the Ravens talent-wise a little more. I think they've got a few more weapons, both offensively and defensively. Like you talked about, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer's good, but he's not the guy. Some of those Bills receivers, pretty much since Stephon Diggs has been gone, have been a little bit underwhelming. It's a committee, exactly. But Josh Allen, he's himself is a weapon, his arm and his legs, And then James Cook is great, obviously. So it really is tough to pick here. Like you said, it's probably more fun to watch it as a fan. I think I lean Buffalo because it's in their building, but yeah, it's going to be just a great preview for the playoffs.
Great preview for January. Great to me, awesome environment there in Orchard Park. I just can't wait to watch it. I love that the NFL is putting maybe the two best teams in the AFC, them in Kansas City.
Once again,
just like last year, Baltimore and Kansas City, they gave us an AFC Championship rematch in Arrowhead that time, and now they're giving us. I just love when they give us two awesome AFC teams off the bat in week one for us to enjoy on Sunday Night Football. Usually they give us like a Dallas Giants Sunday night game to kick off the year. Big markets, big brands. I'm kind of over that. Yeah, or like a Packers Bears or like a Steelers Ravens or Patriots, whatever. They give us some big brands, 49ers, somebody. But I'm just interested to two of the best quarterbacks in football.
Take the top two and just let them go.
Buffalo, Baltimore. Just give me these teams immediately off the bat. I don't need to wait till week 8 to see it. Just give it to me week 1. Get me right back in the mood of NFL Sunday Night Football, which is what this game is going to do. Yeah,
definitely,
no doubt about that. And was there one game on Monday Night Football? Is it the Vikings?
Yeah, we finished up Vikings Bears. It's in Chicago. Minnesota's favored by 1.5 here. This is a game where I'm another game I'm super excited to watch. JJ McCarthy. Who knows what we're getting out of JJ McCarthy?
Unpredictable. Both teams,
and then it's obviously Caleb Williams plus Ben Johnson, and then all those the Luther Burden. Who knows? Just the Bears are their own kind of mess over there. And I don't mean that in a bad way, just
right. It's just their own drama.
It's just their own situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, Vikings Bears. I mean, it's going to be a great game in Chicago. I think I lean Vikings just because I love Kevin O'Connell, just his ability to kind of scheme up a plan for his guys. And obviously, I think Ben Johnson does a lot of that too. I just think that Caleb Williams is, in terms of who he is as a quarterback, it might take a few weeks. And I said that earlier, and I said it feels like there's so much pressure on Caleb this season. And I don't think that's totally fair. I think that you got to let him grow a little bit here. But if they were able to take this one from Minnesota week 1, Monday night, everyone's watching, obviously. I hope it changed the perspective. I hope they come out looking strong, because it would set the tone kind of for the NFC North and what the Ben Johnson era is going to be in Chicago. I think I lean Vikings, like I said here, but I'm picking a lot of away teams, kind of like you said last week, and it might come back to bite me.
Maybe, yeah. This is a game I'm super interested to watch because they're so unpredictable. Both sides. New quarterback from Minnesota, and JJ McCarthy hasn't played it down in the NFL. But Kevin O'Connell, like you mentioned, he seems like he's just quarterback proof at this point.
Yep.
Like
Sam Darnold was generational last year.
He was an MVP candidate last year. So Kevin O'Connell just seems like he's quarterback proof. Everyone that plays in that offense is going to be good. I'm really interested to see, because last year with Detroit and Minnesota, the two best teams in the league last year in the regular season, we got some awesome games between them. Brian Flores and Ben Johnson. Now Ben Johnson's in Chicago, calling plays for the Bears. Brian Flores still in Minnesota, calling plays for that Vikings defense. So that Vikings defense against year 2 Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson and that Bears offense, I'm so interested to see how that matchup goes. This will be an interesting game, because I think if the Bears go down there and win, or not go, I guess they're at home. If the Bears win that game, and if they go down, so let's say they walk down and score a touchdown on that opening drive, the overreactions in Chicago of what this season will be like for the Bears, if they're able to beat Minnesota and that awesome defense that Brian Flores has, if Caleb Williams in year 2 has an awesome game and Ben Johnson's things are clicking off the bat week 1, we're going to have some very interesting Bears conversations, not Monday morning, because it'll be a Monday night game, but on like a Tuesday morning, everyone will be talking about the Bears and what could this be for a year 2 season for Caleb Williams. On the contrary, if JJ McCarthy has an awesome game in his first game of his career here in year 2, similar to Patrick Mahomes sitting a whole year, but he was obviously injured, then we're going to talk about Kevin O'Connell having another, crack here at winning this.
Yeah, just a nice year.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to. So either way, whoever wins this game, I'm going to lean Vikings just like you, because I still overall think there's just better.
Feels safer. Definitely feels safer.
It's a safer pick just because I know what I'm going to get from Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores. The Bears, I have no idea what I'm going to get. There's a world where they come in there and win, and because I think the Bears have all the talent in the world to go do that. They have a revamped offensive line. They have a year 2 quarterback that I love in Caleb Williams. They have Ben Johnson, who I think is awesome. And that defense for the Bears has always been good with Montez Sweat and Jalen Johnson and those guys. So I don't know. I'm going to lean Vikings, but I think whoever wins this game is going to get a lot of hype, and probably justifiable hype, because this is a game. Yeah, in this division, we talk about Lions, Packers, Vikings, Bears. If you're able to get an early season division win against an awesome division team, because all these teams in this division, I think we like. I don't know. I'm going to go Vikings, but I think whoever wins the game is going to be flying high and could have a really big season.
Yeah,
whichever one it is. I think I talked about this Auburn Baylor, same thing. I was like, whoever wins between Auburn and Baylor feels like they could have a good year in college football. I think this game is so unpredictable because we don't know really what either side's going to be about. Vikings were a 14-win team last year. The Bears were struggling, but they overhauled their roster completely. Now they have a lot of talent. Vikings lose their quarterback, but Kevin O'Connell's quarterback proof. This will be a very interesting game on Monday Night Football to watch. I like it that it's in prime time. I like that they give us a prime time spot for Bears. Vikings.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a great slate. I think the question for the Bears offense, obviously, it feels like the Vikings are a little bit more predictable. McCarthy, who knows, he could struggle, he could be great,
sure,
but they definitely feel a little bit more predictable with the continuity coaching wise. The question for me with the Bears is the playbook going to be open for Caleb Williams? Is Ben Johnson going to kind of, Jared Goff was so good at being on time, and he's been in the league for so long, so many years of throwing passes, that Ben Johnson definitely, we trusted him. He had the fake stumble. He opened the playbook for everything, and it was week to week. He always had something for him. Will Ben Johnson do that? Yeah. Will he do that for Caleb? Because it kind of, like you said, you kind of saw Sark maybe was a little bit pump the brakes with Arch, making sure, let him get comfortable, let him settle in, but it kind of it resulted in a loss. So I think that if the Bears are going to win this game, Ben Johnson has to go all out, balls to the wall for this, and he's going to have. And we've seen Ben Johnson beat the Vikings defense. He did it last year several times with Jared Goff, and so I think he's got the ability to do it. He's going to have a game plan to do it. Just my question is, can Caleb execute the game plan, and will Ben Johnson give him that open game plan that lets him kind of let it fly and lets him win this game? Because I think that's what is going to be needed if the Bears want to win, as well as obviously the defense is going to have to play great. They've got a ton of weapons in that Minnesota offense. But I think it does come down to what does the Bears offense look like, both play calling wise and execution wise,
against that Brian Flores defense that loves to blitz. So can Caleb get the ball out of his hands and not hold on to it too long?
and not scramble around and take late sacks. Exactly.
Right. Remember, Jared Goff famously is bad against the blitz. Brian Flores always had his number. Remember, he had his number in the Super Bowl when the Patriots beat them in the Rams 13-3, whatever it was. Jared Goff's always struggled against Brian Flores defenses until last year. Last year, Ben Johnson and Jared Goff had the trust, and they had the answers to the test. They were able to kind of combat this Brian Flores cover zero, all-out exotic blitz looks that he sent. It'll be interesting to see if he trusts Caleb first game to kind of give him all that and say, hey, here's how we can, combat this. Because Brian Flores is going to give us a bunch of different pressure looks all night long. And as a second-year quarterback, it's going to be a lot. I trust Ben Johnson and trust Caleb Williams. I don't know if week 1 is the spot I'd like to see Minnesota. For sure. I'd like to get like a cupcake, bad defense. I'd like to see like a Jacksonville or like a Carolina or like a poor defense week 1 that I can just kind of ease. Caleb can get 300 yards and we can look really crisp offensively. Definitely. This is going to be a tough-nosed NFC North football game. Field goals, it's going to be a classic NFC North game where it's going to come out of play calling coordinators, and both these teams have awesome coordinators.
It's a good old-fashioned overreaction. Just an overreaction game.
It's going to be peak overreaction game on Tuesday morning on like a Get Up or something. So I'm interested to watch it for sure. I'm pumped to see all these NFC North games. But yeah, that's our week 1 slate. Some 4 or 5 like pretty darn good matchups.
A lot of good football this week, both college and NFL.
Both college and NFL. Yeah, a lot of football. We started on Thursday, we ended on Monday. Full slate. Going to be a lot of fun to watch, George. But yeah, that's it for today's podcast, and we'll be back next week to react to the full slate of football, as we mentioned, and then maybe we'll talk about some baseball pennant races. We have a couple weeks left in the MLB season. So we'll have some of those.
Jay's hanging on.
They're hanging on for dear life in that top spot.
Bichette, save the season is what.
Save the season with a 2-run blast in the 9th. The Jays are just 2.5 games ahead of the Yankees. We'll talk about some baseball predictions here in the coming weeks as we get closer to October for sure. But yeah, thanks George for hopping on and talking some ball once again with us today.
Always a pleasure.
All right.